Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Assir with EnergyGigs, and we're joined by Nour Baki, head of global key accounts of Shell TapUp, but formerly co-founder of InstaFuel. Welcome. We're going to get right into sort of asking Nour a bunch of questions and talking about the entrepreneurial journey in energy. But real quick, for those that are new to these webinars and new to EnergyGigs, who are we? We're a just-in-time talent platform for the energy industry. So we connect energy companies, startups, to experts in the energy industry over just-in-time hourly fixed fee internship type projects. So we're excited to have you all here. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. We'll be moderating the chat feed, and we can ask Nour many of these any questions that you want to ask. So without further ado, Nour, welcome again to the webinar. Thank you for sharing your time, your insight. If you don't mind, let's just start with the origin story of InstaFuel. How did it happen?
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody. The entrepreneurial journey in general with InstaFuel it's kind of interesting. My business partner and I, Wissam Nahas, we launched InstaFuel in the summer of 2015, I believe. And it was probably our third startup that we started. We actually started a few companies back in college that failed, another one right after college that failed. This was kind of our third attempt at this. So InstaFuel was kind of founded on the premise of, this is right around 2015. This is when Uber was really getting hyped up. Everything was Uber for, laundry, Uber for food delivery. And so we wanted to come with a new Uber for X business. And so the premise was you can get everything delivered. Why not your gas? You fill up pretty much once a week, every week. And how can we make that whole process, which I can assure you, nobody enjoys getting gas. How can we get that process much easier for everybody? Everyone is a potential customer here. And so the business kind of evolved from being a consumer-based business, basically going to your house and filling it up at night. It evolved to essentially a B2B business where fleets have the biggest pain point with fuel. Drivers, they can steal with the fuel cards you give them. It's very hard to track and manage fuel spend when you give drivers fuel cards. And so we presented business fleets a solution to where we can fuel you every night. We'll give you all the data the second it happens. And you have one check you pay every month. There is no credit cards to manage or any of that stuff. So we took the headache out of managing fuel for our customers. And it was essentially a 10-year journey that, we learned a lot of lessons along the way and culminated into a, fairly large business at one point here in Texas.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, so originally it was a direct to customer sort of business. How did you guys end up pivoting from that to commercial, like the commercial focus? What was that?
Yeah, totally by accident, honestly. When we launched a variation of our business at the University of Houston. Again, they had all these students and all these staff that park at the university all day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And we thought this would be a perfect opportunity to launch. And we got a bunch of PR. We were in the news. And then what happened was we had essentially businesses calling us saying, hey, we'd like to have you come to our lot and just refuel our, 8 delivery vans every night. We're like, sure, we can do U of H during the day. We can do business fleets at night. And we quickly realized the economics of doing a B2B business was way better than that B2C business. We were making more money in the 3-4 hours at night than we did 8-9 hours at U of H. And so kind of a light bulb popped into our head. We looked at the market. We kind of figured out what is fuel delivery in this specific B2B market? Where do we fit? And we found a huge essentially a hole in the market, whereas we have an underserved segment that is in dire need of a solution like this. And so we just pivoted and went straight full force that way.
Wow, that's great. Were you seeing similar traction on the consumer side as in the company side, or were they both equally pulling at you to go a certain direction?
No, it was very much obvious that the B2B side was was demanding it a lot more than the B2C side.
Okay.
For the simple fact is a fleet would probably refuel every single day versus a consumer who probably refuel every 7 days to 10 days, something like this. So
Hmm.
the pain point wasn't as big from the consumer side as it is the B2B side. So we followed the demand essentially.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What like did you like how did you fuel and like when you just started out, like what did you already have a truck and like what was that process like what?
Yeah, this industry is it's difficult. So we're not from the oil and gas industry, right? We're literally two kids fresh out of college trying to start this business, and failed entrepreneurs at that. And this business required heavy capital. Like we had capital expenditure. We had to buy trucks. We had to figure out how to source fuel, and we had to put up money to buy the fuel, and we had to figure out a whole billing system to bill, and then we had to hire drivers, which we've never done before, and trying to figure out and on top of all of that, this is a business that really hasn't been done before. Like what we were
Mhm.
trying to do didn't really exist. We had basically you have these big 18 wheelers that deliver, and that's pretty much it. Or the fleets go to the gas station. There's nothing really in the middle there for these small businesses. And so we had to essentially come up with a whole business plan from scratch. There was nothing to really piggyback off of. And so we started off with my pickup truck. We put 100 gallons in the back. I would do the fills. Uh,
Oh, like
Wissam,
physically, like you go out and
we were like, Wissam and I and a couple of other co-founders, we were the first business, the salespeople, mechanics, drivers, accountants. We did everything in the business. And I think that was a huge blessing for us because it really made us understand the business at its core
Hmm.
and really understood what's going to make, what it's going to take to win and what it's going to take to lead in this business.
Mhm.
So it was very tough the first 3 or 4 years, I would say, definitely.
Wh- Um, did you already kind of were there already competitors out there in the space in Houston trying to do similar thing that you had to
No,
do?
no, we were the first.
Okay.
By far. We were so far ahead of anybody. So like I mentioned, you had these big 18 wheelers.
Yeah.
They'd sometimes do fleets. They do very large fleets, or just big tanks, essentially is what their business is. But nobody would go to a landscaper that had 25 vehicles and refuel the vehicles and the equipment. That didn't
Hmm.
exist. So it was an open landscape for us, which
Hmm.
allowed us to basically trial and error a lot of things out and see what would work, what would work, right? So we were able to make mistakes early on to figure things out. But yeah, I guess that was kind of also a blessing. There was no real competition.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess well to the audience, please do ask any questions. If you have any questions, we'll be monitoring the chat, but kind of moving into like growth and scalability. I mean, so you started doing serving commercial like fleets and you're starting to feel a little bit of a pull rather than a push, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about scalability. Like what strategies did you employ to kind of scale the business? And what did you see as you were trying to grow the business there?
So scalability in this business is also very tough. Like I mentioned, so we had to raise a lot of money, right? So
Okay.
these trucks cost money, right? And it was very difficult for us to raise it because we weren't, like I mentioned, we didn't work at ExxonMobil. We didn't work in a oil rig at we knew nothing about this business. So it was very difficult to get people to trust us and raise money. But we had to get creative. The way we did loans on some of these trucks, and we had to do personal guarantees with some investors. We had to give a little bit more than we think we wanted to, but it was the only way to scale. And
Hmm.
the reason why we did that is because we saw the demand, we saw the potential of where this could go. Excuse me. And so, um, basically, getting trucks was a huge issue that we had to overcome. Hiring was also another issue. Like again, we're not a big company, so getting drivers to not only jump ship from the regular job into this thing that could fail at any moment.
Yeah.
Uh, we had to build a culture of, where the owners are involved just as much as you as the driver or manager or whatever the case may be. So the drivers would see me. Sometimes I would go out and do a route if a driver called off. They'd see us working on a truck, fixing it if we needed it to get going that night. Um, if there's ever an issue with a truck at night, let's say a tire popped on the way, we'd go out and fix it if we could. So we had to build this culture that we're all in it together, and we're all going to get through the night together, and that's what kept our retention of employees so high. And
Mm,
that's a huge factor because when people start falling off, the service is not going to get done that night, and you're going to have angry customers.
mhm,
Once or twice, you're going to lose them. And so to keep that momentum of growth and keep growing, we had to keep customers happy. And it came back down to the operational core of what we're trying to do.
mhm. I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, in terms of finding the right people for the role, I mean, did that influence how you hired people to
Yeah.
to be the driver, to play a back office role? What was that like in terms of interviewing, finding the right talent? Yeah.
It's we were looking for a mentality. I guess. So again, what we did, we weren't going to find a driver. We couldn't just pull from another company like, okay, those drivers can apply here. We had very weird and very specific CDL requirements. We kind of fit in a weird bucket where we're not an 18-wheeler driver, but a small fuel truck never existed before. So how does that classify under the CDL, regulations? So it was kind of funky the way we were hiring because we kind of were in the middle of two different uh, regulations.
Mm,
So we were hiring strictly off of personality, and we were looking for guys and girls who were like very um, they take initiative. They knew how to take initiative. They knew how to, they would never leave a customer without making sure every van was hit, and that takes a very specific type of character. And it was a reflection of who we were. Like we weren't going to leave a customer unhappy with two vans missing. And so finding key guys, asking the right questions during the interview process gave us some insight onto who we wanted. And I mean, just to give you a perfect example, essentially our head of operations at that time at InstaFuel was our first driver. The first guy we hired ended up being the most amazing person to hire because he really led the team
mhm,
uh, every single night, and he became invaluable for us as we grew.
mhm.
And so he at some point was managing the entire operations for all of Texas. So he's managing maybe 50, 60 drivers at one time.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, that guy, Troy, his name's Troy Jupiter. He's honestly one of the key contributors for InstaFuel.
Um, so it sounds like you kind of fit in between these two different sort of delivery modalities. I mean, did you have to do any not lobbying, but like talking to the city or anything like that to say, hey, we're unique in this regard? Like, what was that like in terms of the regulatory environment? Like,
Yeah, I used to say this all the time. This business could not have been done in any other city in America.
hmm,
And the reason why is Houston's very open to business. I mean, they understand, logically, we're not trying to like lie about anything. We're showing them regulations. We kind of showed them what was required. They they allowed us to do a lot of things that technically never existed before. And I give credit to the city of Houston. It's a very entrepreneurial city, and they allowed us to you know conduct business. They basically adapted laws to allow us to continue doing the business the way we saw fit, and so we got lucky in that respect.
that's great.
Yeah,
I just through my own entrepreneurship journey, sometimes I think of entrepreneurship as like you're swimming between you left a perfectly good island with coconuts and like food to eat, and you decided to go swim to another island, and you're swimming and you don't know when that island is gonna be on the horizon. I
yeah.
mean, so for you, like when did you feel like, okay, we've I don't know if made it is the right term, but like when did you feel like the fear of drowning, so to speak, was
Yeah.
yeah, what was that? Was there a turning point for you and for your
So
founder?
it's a very, I mean, InstaFuel, we started in 2015. We got acquired in 2022. So that's what, 7 years or so. The fear of drowning definitely was there for the first 3 years. I can definitely say that. So one thing I used to do is I would periodically go out and actually do fills because it was therapeutic. Because you could see gallons being pumped into vehicles. That was money. Like you saw potential. And that kept, kind of the fears at bay. It wasn't until I think we got a couple of large customers, not even like a national customer, just regional, some of the bigger landscapers in the state of Texas that are like in Houston and Dallas or Houston and Austin. That's when I started to see real potential. Like I was like, okay, there's something definitely here. We just got to make sure we are financially viable. Like we're not spending more than we make. And then the next aha moment is when we signed one of our national customers, a big brand customer that essentially put us on the map in terms of validity. Like if this customer is using us, that means this is a real business. There's real value here. We can go out and raise money on this. And ultimately, we got acquired because of that, because of our operational excellence, our relationship with that customer being so highly rated by that customer, and also our technology, which I don't think I touched on, but our technology was superior, from any of the competition. And so that customer is really that kind of anchored that whole there's a future here now.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, so there's a lot of little interesting nuggets in there that I kind of want to dig into a little bit more. So I understand like you guys had to innovate around the vehicle of for fueling. And so it sounds like you might have had some IP, some intellectual property in that area. But like I know that there was a software component to your business too, which was also, I feel like pretty cool, because I think you guys went into software, you started building your own software solution, right? Like that was, so tell me how your IP kind of worked, how that all worked together. Like
the tech component is really one of the funnest things about this business. So you have to imagine you're going to a customer location, right? You have, let's just say, 100 vehicles in front of you that you have to refuel.
Yeah.
How is a driver supposed to log that data? Okay, I put in 8 gallons in vehicle XYZ, and then I put in vehicle ABC another 8 to 10 gallons, or whatever the case may be. How do you log that efficiently? Because the more time you spend logging, that's more time on site, which means more cost, which means a higher price, which means a customer may not see the value in it, right? So we had to be in and out as efficiently and as safely as possible. And so we looked at some of at that time, this is again 2016 and 2017, some of the solutions out there, it was all bad. Like it was actually worse than just writing it down on paper. So going back to kind of goes full circle that the 2 startups that we started back in college were all app development companies. We wanted to build games, we wanted to build apps. And so we got a lot of experience in app development. And so we were looking at all these solutions. We're like, you know what, we can probably build our own. And so we brought on Josh, who was our CTO at the time, and we kind of worked on. I would say it's honestly revolutionary what we built, and we actually got a patent on it, multiple patents on it. Basically, a logging system. How can we scan a vehicle, log that data in real time within seconds, and move on to the next vehicle? And then not only that, how can you control the truck, i.e. the pumps and all the meters on the truck through the phone? These meters on these trucks, there's a very specific brand that you can only use, and they're very difficult they're old school in a way. And so how do you connect to that wirelessly? How do you control it wirelessly? And so we spent a good year and a half building it.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was the game changer for us, because we were so efficient getting in and out of a customer. We were fueling, logging, and then as soon as we left the lot, that data was sent to the customer real time. They knew exactly how much each vehicle took at that fueling a night. And so that's kind of that was the fun stuff, designing that software from the back end, the front end, and actually seeing it live. Like once we released an update, we tested out that day. Like I remember it's Bluetooth, right? So how far can we be from the truck? How is it going to work? I remember jumping inside of a dumpster, enclosing myself in metal, and just trying to see if it would like control the truck, and I turn it off and on from that. And so those were the fun times, actually testing out these cool features. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, like, did you also have to? I'm assuming you had to deal with sort of intrinsically safe devices, because you're talking fuel and so that's also, there's some interesting nuances there too, right? Like.
Yep. Again, you're dealing with hazardous material, so you have to take some precautions. We have to get special cases for some of these phones and some of these devices. So, but as long as it could send Bluetooth the way we needed it to, that's all we were looking for.
That's awesome. Well, so let's kind of maybe pivot now, unless anyone else has any questions from the call. We'll move into sort of the next phase, like the acquisition, the courting process. How did it happen with Shell? Like what I mean, were you looking to raise money and then it just happened to?
Yeah, that's kind of how it started. That's definitely how it started. We were in a fundraising mode probably 3 to 4 months prior meeting Shell. So Shell had a competing business to ours at some point. And we shared the same customer, actually, that big brand name customer we shared. And The customer spoke so highly of us to Shell. It made Shell kind of like, well, who are these guys? And so I think we reached out to them, if I'm not mistaken, for some fundraising, and then the conversation just kind of turned from, hey, let's set up fundraising. Let's look at maybe joining forces together. We could leverage their fuel supply ability and expertise. Our technology could be applied to their trucks. We'd have a much larger footprint. Our customer would be happy, and it was just a perfect kind of marriage of a lot of different things that we did well, they did well, and let's help each other kind of grow. And that conversation evolved within 3 to 4 months. I think maybe it was 5 months or so, but we got acquired with Shell, and it's been amazing. Honestly, Shell TapUp is the company that I currently work for under the Shell umbrella. It's been amazing, man. We've launched so many MSAs, so many markets, doing so many gallons. It's kind of it's been crazy. It's been crazy, really.
That's awesome. So we have a question from the audience. How did you determine that it made financial sense to be fully acquired by Shell?
It's a lot of factors. It really is a lot of factors. It goes into, because it's not just my decision as a founder, it goes into the investors of InstaFuel. What are they going to get out of it? Is there another opportunity on the horizon that you could think about? Um, I mean, we all have a number like that we think, look, if it comes to this number, we'll take it. If it's a little bit below, we may take it, but if it's below this number, we're definitely not taking it. And that's basically based on the value you're providing. We were the best at the time, but to be quite honest with you, we were capped. Like we couldn't really go outside of Texas. And there was opportunities in Florida, in California, Arizona, Northeast. And you're gonna have to raise a lot of money to do that, dilute your shares and all the other investor shares, or you have a perfect opportunity with basically a competing business from a well-known brand in Shell. It just made sense. Like the marriage of the two, what they did well and what we did well, just worked very well. And within a year and a half, we basically executed on everything we were required to in terms of our customers. We grew wherever our customers grew quickly. So it's definitely it's a case by case basis. But I mean, if it fits, it fits outside of just the numbers of financial numbers.
No, that's great. I mean, I guess through your journey, I mean, it's a 9-10 year journey, like working with investors, like what was that like? I mean, working, you had raised some money to get your initial technology, whether it's the car or the software, like were any bumps in the road there that you can kind of talk through, and how did you navigate them? Like,
yeah, I mean, investors, I mean, they think differently than founders, right? You got to put your investor cap on instead of your founder cap on, because as a founder, you want to do what's right for the business, always, right for your employees, always. And sometimes it may clash with financial goals that you have to hit, right? We got lucky. Our investors were for the most part really great. They helped us. They put in money when we needed them to, and they believed in us. I mean, one of our investors literally put in money the first day we launched. And we were just two kids who just had this idea, and we had some small little test pilots, and he just put in money. And so we got lucky with that regard. The hardest part about raising money in general, in our business at least, this is different if you're a straight technology business, is that there's a lot of capital expenditure. And number one, and number two, it's hazardous materials. People get very scared about that, which I understand makes complete sense, especially when we're not from the oil and gas industry. You're just two kids managing a fueling business, running around the city with a small, pretty big gas tank. So that was the challenging part, but we got lucky with some of the investors we found. For the most part, all Houston-based. I think we had one major investor from Dallas, but all Texas-based essentially. They could see with their own eyes the business. They actually had friends who became customers, so that kind of proved to them like, hey, this business is legit. And so that gave them more incentive to keep pushing with us.
No, that's great. Another question from an attendee. How did you figure out where to buy your fuel when you were just starting out?
There's some funny stories with fuel. We would, starting early on, one of our co-founders, his name is Zaid, he would go to Costco, take that little truck and just get gift cards and just swipe gift cards at Costco, and you would just see this tank at Costco just being filled up with gas. We were getting gas for like 50 cents a gallon at the time. That's how we were like surviving. He figured out a way to like use gift cards to get like 50% off on the fuel. And he would sit for like 3 hours just pumping gas in his truck, in this little tiny little fuel truck. And then it just evolved from, okay, we got basically one customer to now we have like 10 customers. Okay, we need much bigger fuel, and going to Costco is not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So we approached, there's market middlemen who basically could buy fuel from on credit. And but you had to put money up in escrow, and they pull from that every time you pull fuel. And then it just became going straight to terminals at that point and getting all that stuff even bigger quantity. So we grew as the customers grew because we needed more fuel. And so we would go from one end of the market, which is literally Costco, to these middlemen to direct from the refineries.
Hmm.
So, and that was a learning process as well. We had to figure out, okay, well, where can you buy 10,000 gallons of fuel today? Well, we had to go research that and figure that out and build those relationships.
And so, I mean, does that mean like you guys were also then investing in real estate in places to park this fuel? And
Yeah. So InstaFuel, we literally we bought our own little permanent tank setups at our yards. So it was like our own little gas station for our trucks to refuel at. And so every morning you'd see the fuel supply come in, they dump all the fuel in these tanks, and then we'd have a manager out there at the yard just refueling all the trucks every single day.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how the business grew. And it was extremely efficient the way we did it, actually.
Hmm.
Now it's a little bit different. We don't do that now. We go direct to the refinery now. We refuel at the terminal.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of in keeping with the questions on fuel, another question from an attendee: with gas prices changing frequently, how did you figure out the finances on how much to charge?
Great question. Great question. So that's kind of being the first salesperson, you kind of figure out like where the pain points are for these customers. The customers, we never sold on the fuel price. It's not, we never said, okay, you're gonna pay 250 today versus 260 tomorrow. We sold them on the service. So we would peg our fuel price to whatever the market rate is. And so let's just say Opus or something like that, or maybe even Gas Buddy sometimes. So whatever that market said it was, that's what you'll pay. We would sell you on the delivery fee, which is whatever. Let's just say it doesn't cost us $50 to come out here and refuel it. We knew our margin. We knew basically, okay, that's 30 vehicles equals, maybe a couple hours at night. We're going to be there refueling. We knew our tech. We knew how efficient we are. We knew that number would be really low in terms of time on site. And we would come to a number, let's just say $50. We would show them that $50 is going to cost you $50, but here's what you're going to get in return. Every morning, your driver's going to go straight to their job sites. They're not going to stop at fuel. That's 15 minutes saved. That's whatever, $3,000 you just saved in fuel and labor costs by refueling. You're now more efficient. You can now do an extra delivery or mow an extra lawn or whatever the case may be. That's new revenue we just gave to you. And then all of the soft costs, which are like, saving no more fuel card management, get all your data up front. You don't have to do Excel sheets to figure out your fuel data. And so if you kind of put a number on all this, $50 was like nothing compared to the overall value we were providing. Just taking that headache out of somebody's, a manager and owner's mind of like, I don't want to deal with this messiness. We take care of all that for you. And it's such a convincing price point that they're able to make money and we're able to make money, which is cool.
That's awesome. Well, we have a couple minutes left. If there are any more questions, try to get them in now. I have a question for you. I guess reflecting on your entrepreneurial journey, like what's sort of a key lesson that that you took away from this whole experience that that you're kind of you're using every day in your work with Shell, and if you ever I don't know if you were to do it all over again, what would be sort of a thing that you would do differently, if you will?
So I'll take that as two questions. So
Yeah.
one thing that I really learned, one of the hardest things I learned that became extremely valuable was building culture. Even I have a small team here at Shell. Like I work directly with two or three guys. It's the culture building. It's the making sure that we're still the same vibe that we did at InstaFuel, wanted to replicate it in some form or fashion at Shell. So that leadership culture, being a leader, understanding like you don't just throw things on people. You got to actually help them through a lot of the work and some of the analysis we do on a daily basis. That's kind of the main thing. Like I will never give anything to somebody I work with. I'll never give them work that I can't do myself. Right. Like it's just like jumping back into the truck and doing routes. Like at the end of the day, if it's 12 a.m. and I gotta go refuel this customer because some guy, didn't show up that night, then so be it. I will go out and up until 5 a.m. be doing fills until the fills are done.
Hmm.
So that's leadership to me. And something that I would do differently. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think we did a lot of things right. We got lucky, doing a lot of things right, and we were lucky because so one of the, I would say this is a blessing, honestly. We were never able to raise a lot of money at InstaFuel. Like we had some competitors from California that raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on the exact same business.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it was essentially a disadvantage for them because it just made it essentially incentivized them to just hire people, let them figure it out. And this business requires the like the founders to be in it, like truly in it, like being out in the field doing fills. And because we were always essentially quote unquote broke in this business, we were always trying to, our survival was getting a new customer. So it made us more hungry to go out and close, do whatever it takes to get the fills done, keep the customer happy, because otherwise we're going out of business. We didn't have the money in the bank just to keep funneling this through. And so uh, I used to always think that was a mistake on our part that, we never were able to raise money. But looking back on it now, honestly, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to us.
Hmm.
That we were not able to raise money in the way VCs or private equity or any of that case. We did it all angels, all grassroots. And I would do that moving forward with any business I'm in, honestly.
That's great. I mean, it's also sort of counter what you hear and see in a
Yeah.
lot of the news and media. I mean, the the VC-backed billion-dollar unicorn, but like that's an interesting, I think, a really good point. We have a question from another attendee. What was the biggest obstacle in figuring out how to scale the business?
It's a good question. It was a balance of doing a lot of things at once.
Hmm.
So, for example, when we got a really big customer, a nationwide customer, well, that means we needed to get more trucks, more fuel, more drivers, and our technology had to scale up to add, 3, 4, 500 more vehicles a night. And so there was a balancing act that we had to figure out, okay, well, we got to order the trucks now, but they're not going to get here for another 3 months. So we got to overload our current trucks, which means we need to have an extra guy come out and do an extra shift, which means we have to get more fuel to come in. So how do you plan that out? It was the culmination. Basically, you struggle, you struggle, you struggle, you struggle, and then at one point it hits. Like you get the customer, you finally break the ceiling. Well, now you have new problems. Like it's good problems, but the new problems to have you have to deal with, which is okay. Well, we got the demand that we wanted. We got to figure out a way to do it. And
Yeah.
so that was the hard part, is doing this balancing act to make sure everything just kind of correlated together at once to essentially go into to where it needed to be.
No, that's fantastic. Well, Nour, I think we're at time. I really appreciate you sharing your insight, your lessons learned, and your insight on yeah, just growing, founding InstaFuel, growing InstaFuel. If people have any additional questions, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn
Absolutely.
or?
Absolutely. No problem. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I give talks at U of H all the time. So I'm more than happy to help entrepreneurs with whatever issues they're dealing with in their journey. Of
No,
course.
fantastic. Well, that's it. That's a wrap, guys and gals. Thank you so much for joining this month's webinar on entrepreneurship in energy. Thanks again, Nour, for being our guest this month. Really appreciate it. Fantastic
Exactly.
story. Look forward to seeing all the things you're doing to grow TapUp at Shell. And yeah, we'll look forward to talking to you all next month on the EnergyGigs webinar. I think next month we're going to be talking about green carbon finance. So scope 1, scope 2, and investment into sort of green projects from a large player perspective. But anyways, thanks everyone. And yeah, look forward to seeing y'all next time.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.